Fight Night picks this weekend is an absolute mess. As you had seen on Thursday evening, UFC press conference, Dana White has to cut it short. Listen, we had Daniel Rodriguez, Kevin Holland. We had some of the fighters jazzing it up, getting excited, and then a little bit of a skirmish behind the scenes. Then on weigh-in day, Friday, ahead of Saturday's fights, looky here what we've got. Chris Barnett misses the heavyweight limit at 267.5. Irene Aldana, Macy Chasson becomes a catchweight fight. We have a catchweight fight between Khamzat Chimaev, a catchweight fight between Li Jingliang. And man, in my brain...
May I, Craig? Before, what the fuck's going on right now?
In my brain, I went to this. I remember Dana White saying this vividly, and this is a tweet from Jedi Goodman. Let's just make this absolutely clear. I hate fights at a catchweight. Yeah. How many catchweight fights have we done in 20 years? I hate them because they mean nothing. They're useless. And look at this. Technically, on a technicality, to the Fight Night Picks fans, I hit the wrong button. On a technicality, you have Collier Barnett. If you miss weight, then that becomes a catchweight. So Collier Barnett's a catchweight. Hakeem Dowodu missed weight at 149 to fight Julian Erosa. Technically, they'll say it's a featherweight bout. It's a catchweight bout because he missed weight. You have Almeida Turkalj that was already a catchweight. In total, you have 6 fucking catchweight fights on a 13-fight card. Almost half of these fights are a catchweight. It's ridiculous, but out of the embers comes a fire. We end up with Li Jingliang taking on D-Rod Daniel Rodriguez. And for fans who might not know, for Daniel Rodriguez, a man who's all the hotness, you'll see it in the graphic, 4-1 in the 5-on-in. He's on a tidy 3-fight win streak. The one loss is to Nicholas Dalby, a guy who will throw the kitchen sink at you but not land on a lot of that volume. And some people did think that Rodriguez won that fight.
A controversial decision.
But if you do look at the wins that he's had since then, a win over Mike Perry, a finish win over short notice call-up Preston Parsons, who's a coach of a fighter that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks, and then his last time out sent Kevin Lee, the former interim championship contender, out of the UFC to fight Diego Sanchez.
Why?
So for D-Rod, he was that hotness. He's a guy just like Riff Raff in 2015, tiptoeing in my Jordans. That's what D-Rod's all about. But a left hand injury forced him out, and he's been away for about the last year, had surgery on the hand, had to rehab the hand, training pretty well full-time at Syndicate MMA, BMF Ranch as well. But for Dana Rodriguez, he goes from fighting Kevin Holland in a fight that, listen, most people had figured Kevin Holland would win. He was a big favorite. To now fighting Li Jingliang, a guy who came into this week, because originally, out of all these catchweights, Rodriguez and Holland was scheduled to be at 180 pounds. So you'll see Dana Rodriguez, 179. Li Jingliang, 170.5. Jingliang weighed in successfully at the welterweight limit or below to fight Tony Ferguson. Little bit of a weight bullying tactic for Dana Rodriguez. He gains an advantage now all of a sudden.
I think he does, but first and foremost, I have to say this. I love this fight in the matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Like, entertainment-wise, I think we're going to get 3 incredible fights. That's the one good thing about this weird mix-up, because that's why I said, what the F is going on? Like, this is weird. All 6 fighters are still fighting. They're just not fighting their original dance partner. That makes 0 sense to me whatsoever, but out of the 3 new matchups, I'm really excited for this one. Daniel Rodriguez was getting ready for a guy who's probably going to box him quite a bit, going to wrestle him a little bit if he really has to, and, going to try to absorb the storms that Daniel Rodriguez is going to bring to the cage. Li Jingliang kind of, he checks all those boxes. So I really do think this is going to be a good fight. And the good thing for both guys is I don't really think they're going to have to change their game plan a lot. If you want to disagree with that, feel free to. But for the most part, Li Jingliang was going to get ready for a boxer, albeit Tony Ferguson is much more orthodox than Daniel Rodriguez. But for the most part, he's going to choose to strike, then choose to wrestle as sort of like a second resort, last resort, if you will. Daniel Rodriguez cut from that same cloth. The difference is Rodriguez is going to be a lot more traditional with his boxing combos. Won't be going for the crazy spinning elbows or any of those sweep kicks like we see out of Tony Ferguson. But the good thing is, I really think this is going to be a great fight, and it should be a competitive matchup. And I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the odds before we started making this video, but I assume they are quite even, because I look at Li Jingliang and Daniel Rodriguez at a very similar point in the welterweight division. They can be a competitive fight to anybody from probably like 5-15 if we're being completely honest. Like, they're not going to win all those fights again, but they're going to make them very fun and very competitive fights. Now that they're matched up with each other, I agree with you. I do think the added 10 pounds that Daniel Rodriguez knew he was going to show up with on fight week is going to make a difference, but I still think Li Jingliang is a little bit better technically, which should cause D-Rod some issues, and I do think that Jingliang can throw that lead leg kick that could cause D-Rod issues. But the great thing about this fight is, and the thing that I'm so excited for is, these guys love to box. I don't think we're going to see a lot of takedown attempts unless one guy gets really hurt, and the fun thing about both guys is, D-Rod can shoot for a lot of defensive submissions. We all know how good of a grappler he is in that capacity, and Li Jingliang, when push comes to shove, I know he's been out grappling in the UFC in a lot of his bigger fights, but it's not like he's unknown on the ground. He can lay some good ground and pound, so I really do think this is an incredible matchup.
I mean, if you do look at this fight and you consider for Daniel Rodriguez, listen, he hasn't fought the greatest level of competition, much greater output compared to Li Jingliang, at a better percentage, slightly better, in terms of some of the metrics when it comes to takedown defense, so on and so forth. Daniel Rodriguez gives one to take one. And listen, he does dish out 8.06 significant strikes landed per minute to 5.38. So it is a positive differential. But having said that, strikes absorbed per minute for Li Jingliang, 3.66 over a much larger frame. That's a big thing out of Li Jingliang. If you don't know him, obviously he was trying to help out Tony Ferguson behind the scenes because Tony almost tripped over a TV wire.
We don't need that to happen.
We don't need another torn ACL. But if you do look at it for Li Jingliang, 7 bonuses in the UFC, has 10 knockdowns in 16 total UFC fights. That's wild. And he's tied for second all-time in the welterweight division. And this is like over the entirety. Your Usmans, your Edwards, your GSPs, with 8 finishes by knockout. Wow. So big feather in the cap of Li Jingliang. Eager to see these guys, especially tomorrow when they face off in the cage. That's the toughest part because question mark kicks is set up for after the weigh-ins, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
But you don't expect all the matchups to be jumbled up. But when I do look at this one, Matt, and we will consider it, and we will take part in your votes because we threw the polls out there on Instagram, Matt. Instagram, YouTube community tab. We're always out there trying to interact with everybody, and we have a lot of votes on this one so far. Just threw it out there. 150 votes, good for 60% on Daniel Rodriguez. 100 votes exactly on the nose, 40% for Li Jingliang. And if we do have a look at the odds in this matchup, Matt,
I'm curious to see what they are.
Li Jingliang open around a plus 130, still about there. Daniel Rodriguez minus 150. Rodriguez getting for a dynamic long-range striker in Kevin Holland, a guy who, listen, has his own jiu-jitsu accolades, especially in his back pocket. Travis Lutter, BJJ for Kevin Holland. You look at it for Li Jingliang, a little bit more of a different striker. He definitely holds himself a lot more compact than a Kevin Holland.
Oh, yeah.
Even a Daniel Rodriguez as well. And I'd argue a little bit, I would consider Daniel Rodriguez, you talked about the technique. I think Daniel Rodriguez, a lot more crisp with his shots, a lot better with his technique than a guy like Li Jingliang. But Jingliang does a great job of mixing head, body, and to the legs.
See, this is my thing. I think early on, Daniel Rodriguez will be more comfortable. He will be more technical. But the thing about Li Jingliang is, when he gets into that rhythm, it is tough to deal with him. He does mix together his strikes quite well, and that's what I allude to when I say I think he's a little bit more technical. I think Daniel Rodriguez is going to come out with a big storm. I do think that added weight is going to help him, especially in the power punching department. And the wild thing about Li Jingliang is he's a very heavy-handed striker, but he has been clipped a number of times throughout his UFC career. I talked about it a lot, especially early on. Now he is a little bit better defensively, but when he was fighting guys like Bobby Nash early in his career, Kaita Nakamura dropped him as well.
You gotta go way back.
I know you do, but those guys are not big punchers whatsoever. When you look at a guy like Daniel Rodriguez, who can genuinely put down anybody in the welterweight division, I do think you can look back at some of those performances and just notice that, hey, guys with power can hurt Li Jingliang in his career. But the thing is, once he does get into a rhythm, I do like Li Jingliang's game a little bit more than Daniel Rodriguez. I do think he can mix together the body shots with the leg kicks, with the head shots a little bit more. The problem is, I don't know when that pendulum is going to swing, because it's not like Daniel Rodriguez is a guy who's known to just sort of go out there and, for lack of a better term, blow his load in the first 3 minutes, and then just sort of try to coast for the next 12 minutes like we saw out of an early career Jorge Masvidal. Daniel Rodriguez can keep a steady pace, but the problem is, when the Leech gets into his sort of, next level up, when he hits that next gear, I still think he's going to outpace D-Rod, and that's why I think this fight's going to be so incredible. I am going to ever so slightly favor Daniel Rodriguez in this matchup as a final prediction, but this is going to be a great fight. I could see both guys getting hurt, both guys getting dropped. This could easily become fight of the night, and again, that's the wild thing about these 3 new matchups we get. Any 3 of them could be fight of the night, and they could have been before they were switched up anyways.
I'm not so, like, co-main event Chimaev Holland. I know they jawed. I know there's going to be a lot of banter about it. It is a 5-round fight. This one's 3. Main event Ferguson and Nate Diaz is a 5-round fight as well. I'm most excited about this fight in the main event, and I think this is going to be a great one. If you have Daniel Rodriguez coming out with the amount of volume that he threw against Kevin Holland, keeping him away, obviously, Lee was able to get some of the takedowns, but obviously not wear on Rodriguez whatsoever. But the trouble is, there's been the layoff, there's been the hand injury. I haven't seen it yet. I'll get right back on the D-Rod train after this fight, for better or for worse. So for me, I do like Lee Jingliang in this fight as well. Now, could be completely wrong on this one, and that's why we need to hear from you. 60% of you going with Daniel Rodriguez on Instagram. Let us know down below in the comments who you have in this one, especially in these next 3 fights. You got to help us out. Please comment below and let us know who you have in these fights.
Just an incredibly competitive matchup, though. Like, I completely understand where you're coming from, and hopefully you can agree with my points too, because I really do think this is going to be an incredible fight. And the weird thing, like, Lee Jingliang got done dirty at that press conference, okay? Yeah. Bought a new blue suit, was looking fine. He was ready to make his mark on that. And in a fight against a guy like Tony Ferguson, he was going to be able to increase his star power exponentially. So I just hope that he still gets that same opportunity. I know a win over a guy like Daniel Rodriguez won't mean as much as a win over El Kukui, even though Tony Ferguson is on a bit of a losing streak. But still, I just hope this card gets the notoriety it deserves for all the BS all these fighters have had to put up with this week.
So again, comment down below with who you have in this matchup. Both of us going with China's Lee Jingliang. Thank Hunter Campbell on Instagram, on Twitter for putting this damn card together and keeping the ship afloat. We're going to have a video for Chimaev Holland. We are also going to have a video for Ferguson and Nate Diaz. And then we're going to have a full card video with everything in it, because we're getting wild at Fight Night Picks. You're going to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.